we are going to actually check out how we can improve on behavioral interview for software engineers. How should we proceed? Okay, so what are behavioral interviews? Succeeding in an engineering career involves more than just technical skills. People skills become more important as an engineer becomes more senior. Let me just maximize the screen size. Yeah, so it's easier for me to read and you guys can also see it. Succeeding in an engineering career involves more than just technical skills. People skills become more important as engineer becomes more senior. Senior engineers should have the ability to lead and influence, resolve conflicts, anticipate risks, plan the roadmap, and more. Hiring a talented engineer that cannot work with other can ultimately be a net deficit for companies. Companies don't want to hire brilliant jerks. The company is better off not hiring a very talented engineer who refuses to work with others or causes an entire team to be unproductive. Companies want to hire the right person that will work with the existing employees and help the team and company achieves greater heights. And behavioral interviews are one way to determining if someone will be good to work with from a non-technical standpoint. Typically, uh, typically behavioral interviews question can be split into several types. Getting to know your career preference, ambitions, and plans. Discuss detail of experience or project written in your resume. Tell me about a time where you type of question where you describe how you demonstrated certain traits or responded to a situation. Uh, the importance of behavioral interview. Companies value behavioral skills to and to evaluate candidate on them. And at the time of writing, Facebook has one round out of four dedicated to behavioral interviews. Airbnb has two rounds out of six dedicated to behavioral interviews. Company Fit. Lyft has one round out of five dedicated to past experience situational question by a hiring manager. From the company's perspective, the interview has two purposes: access whether assesses whether a candidate has a history of demonstrating the right behavior that would make them successful at the company, assesses the seniority of the candidate, junior, senior, or staff. How to prepare for behavioral interview. Learn the star answer format. Prepare your answer to commonly asked questions. Prepare experience to showcase fit to the company culture and core values. Try out mock behavioral interviews. Use structured courses. Learn the star answer format. The star format is a framework to help you organize answer to a behavioral question, especially one requiring you to discuss previous experiences. Situation. The interviewer wants you to present a recent challenge and situation which you found yourself in. Task. What were you required to achieve? The interviewer will be looking to see what you were trying to achieve from the situation. Some performance development method use target rather than task. uh, job in, Job interview candidate who describes a target they set themselves instead of an external imposed task, emphasize their own intrinsic motivation to perform and to develop their performance. I didn't quite get this point. What are what are you required to achieve? The interviewer will be looking to see what you were trying to achieve from the situation. Some performance development method uses target rather than tasks. Okay, got it. Job interview candidate who describes a target they set themselves instead of an external imposed task, emphasize their own intrinsic motivation to perform and to develop their performance. Action. What did you do? The interviewer will be looking for information on what you did, why you did it, and what The alternatives were results, what was the outcome of your action, what did you achieve through your actions, and what did you learn, what steps did you take to improve after the experience. Example of how to apply STAR to a behavioral interview question. Here's an example. Here's an example of how the STAR format can be used to answer the question. Tell me about a time in which you had a conflict and needed to influence somebody else. I was the team lead of school project about building a social network mobile web app. Our designers midterm were approaching and didn't have time to produce the mockups. Our front end person was rushing him for the mockups so that he could proceed with his work, and that was stressing the designer out. The atmosphere in the team was tense. As the team lead, I had to resolve the tension between the front end developer and the designer so that the team could work together peacefully and complete the project on time. Excuse me. I spoke to the front end developer to ask him why he was rushing the designer for the designs. He said that he wanted the design early because it would be a waste of time rebuilding if the designer designed something different eventually. I explained to him that the midterm dates were out of the designer's control and we had to be more understanding about each other's schedules. I spoke to the designer to get rough idea of what he had in mind and asked him when he could commit to producing the high fidelity designs. He replied that he could start on them as soon as his midterm were over. I explained to him why the front end developer was pushing him for the mockups and that the front end developer had no ill intentions and simply wanted the project to succeed. As someone with some experience in UI and UI UX design, I came up with the wireframe mocks, ran them by the designer for approval, then passed them to the front end developer to start building. I encouraged the front end developer to use placeholder, not to be concerned about the details for now. We could build the non-UI parts first, authentication, hook up with APIs, and tweak pixels and add polish later on. The front-end developer agreed and went ahead with the approach. I explained to the front-end developer that the designer will pass us the mockups after the midterm by date. Result: when our designer ended midterms, he came he came back with beautiful mockups that fit well into the wireframe. Our front-end developer implemented them with great care to detail. We ended up scoring top marks for the project and became a great team. Prepare your answer to commonly asked questions. The next natural step is to start preparing your answer for commonly asked behavioral questions. You may refer to my list of 30 questions which were collated across top tech companies for this. Okay. While most people, while most people might be inclined towards a memorization, it's much better to pen down bullet points to each question and practice verbalizing them near to the interviews so that your answer will come out more naturally. Prepare prepare experiences to showcase fit to the company culture, core values. As aforementioned, most top companies uses their company's value to evaluate candidates in behavioral interviews. As such, you should do your research to find out what those values are and ensure you have prepared experiences that showcase fit. Try out mock behavioral interviews. I haven't tried interviewing.io. Like, what's that? Okay, so let's head back to our wherever we were. Where were we? We were at at this line. Schedule one with interviewing.io. Interviewing.io boosts a large pool of interviewers from Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Microsoft. I used interviewing.io both as an interviewer and interviewee and can guarantee a good experience with this platform. Use structured courses. I don't really think one need to attend a course on interviews, but your mileage may vary. I've seen candidates get rejected for failing the behavioral round even though they did super well on the coding and system design interviews. If you want to take a course on behavioral interview, I'd recommend the following course: Behavioral Interview by Exponent. Okay, so let's how candidates are evaluated. Okay, let's see the perfect self introduction. Tell me about yourself or give me a quick introduction of your profile. If is almost always the first question encountered in your software engineer interviews. This guide teaches you how to maximize this chance to impress the interviewer by crafting the perfect self introduction. The interviewers want to work with candidates they like. Leave a good and deep impression and it will increase your chances of success. Most of us are not strangers to self introduction as we meet new people and now and then and have to introduce ourselves every once in a while. However, self introduction in interviews are slightly different from real life. You need to tweak it to your advantage, tailor the self introduction to the role and company you are applying from. For uh, your self introduction evolves as you grow and are at different stages and and are at a different stage of your career. When answering tell me about yourself, you can rephrase this question into tell me about your journey into tech. How did you get interested in coding? Why was web development or replaced with other job specific skills a good fit for you? How is that applicable to your role or company goals? It is probably not a good idea to spend valuable time talking about things which aren't relevant to the job. Make an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch originates from a journalist trying to pitch an idea to an editor. The only time to catch the editor was in the elevator, and she had only around 30 seconds to do so. The key elements of elevator pitches include short, you have limited time; direct, as you have limited time, you should get to the point; attention grabbing, present your most attractive ideas. Whether you are at a job fair with hundreds of other candidates and you have limited time, or you are simply explaining who you are to a potential connection or client, it is important to be able to clearly and accurately describe your knowledge and skills quickly and succinctly. I don't know how do you pronounce that. Your self introduction is an elevator's pitch for yourself. Here are some tips to develop a good elevator pitch for your software engineering self introduction. Start with basic background information. Include who you are, who you work for, and what you do. Internships, you should mention the following name, school and major, focus areas, past internship, noteworthy projects. Full time, you should mention the following name, past companies, noteworthy projects. Best if it's a public consumer product that they should have heard of. Does this look familiar? It should be because it is similar to your resume. Your resume is condensed version of your knowledge and experience, and your self-introduction is essentially a condensed version of your resume. As you grow older, professional experience become more important and school background becomes less important. Hence, your self-introduction changes as you become more senior. Case, keep it simple and sweet. Tell them some highlights of your favorite, most impressive projects, including some numbers if they are impressive, or challenges that you have overcome. Do not dwell into depth of how you reverse engineered a game and decrypted a packet to predict when to use your DKP on a drop. Tell, tell them the executive summary. I reverse engineered X game by decrypting Y packet to predict Z. If this catches their interest, they might ask further question on their own. Why do they want you? Tell the interviewer why you would make a good hire. Is your experience relevant to the company? Uh, have you used a similar tech stack as the company or built relevant products? What unique talents do you have that may give them confidence about your ability to contribute to the company? Practice. Practice uh, Lastly, you must practice your pitch. Having a great second summary of your skills only helps if you can actually deliver it rapidly. You should practice keeping a quick but easy to follow pace that won't overwhelm them but won't bore them. It's a precarious balance, but can be ironed out with practice. After coming up with your introduction, keep it somewhere where you can refer, tweak in future, memorize them, and in future you can use it use it when you but but don't sound like you are recalling it from your memory when you're actually saying it out. Sound natural. Having an elevator pitch on hand is a great way to create a network and chance upon a new job opportunity. There will often be times when you can't prepare for an interview or meeting, and it is incredibly handy to have a practice pitch. Good example of software engineer self introduction. Front end engineer at Meta. Hi, I am Sumit, and I graduated from National University of Singapore in 2015 with a degree in computer science. My interests are in front end engineering, and I love to create beautiful and performant products with delightful user experience. Back in school, I designed and built a web application in US mods which solves a huge problem of class and timetable planning. Every semester, I receive over a million page views a month and is used by over 40. I'm interested I'm interested in the front-end engineer role at Meta because I have been using Meta open source front-end technology for a while now, and I am inspired by Meta's mission and open source culture. Breakdown. I love to create beautiful and performant product with delightful user experience, quality that a front-end engineer should possess. It receives over a million page views a month and is used by 30,000 in US undergraduate and even more. Okay, mention something about the project which stands out. Meta Tech Stack also hints that you keep yourself updated with modern web technologies. Front-end engineer at left. Got it. Software engineering interviews, best end of interview questions to ask. Something you always count on to happen at the um, let's see what question best questions to ask for knowing. Okay, let's read it out. Okay, worst case. Something you can always count on to happen at the end of your software engineer interview, both technical and non technical rounds, is for the interviewer to ask you if you have any final questions. This question actually isn't real question at all. Candidates are generally expected to ask questions. As an interviewer myself, candidate who don't have any questions might come off as less interested in the role. Beside that, the question you ask reveal what you care about. If asked well, this can be very predictable opportunity for you to leave a good impression while also knowing more about the role, including uncovering potential red flags. Here I present questions to ask at the end of your software engineer interview for every purpose. The one in bold are the one that tend to make the interviewer go, that's a good question, and pause and think for a bit. Got it. Let's see what they are. Best question to ask for knowing more about technical work. What are the engineering challenges that the company team is facing? Um, okay. What has been the worst technical blunder that has happened in the recent past? How did you guys deal with it? What challenges were implemented afterwards to make sure it didn't happen again? What is the most costly technical decision made early on on that the company is living with now? What is the most fulfilling, exciting, technical, complex project that you have worked on here so far? I do not have experience in domain X. How important is this for me to be able to succeed? How do you evaluate new technologies? Who makes the final decision? How do you know what to work on each day? How would you describe your engineering culture? How was your role challenged since joining the company? What is your text? What is your stack? What is the ra- what is the rational for story behind the specific stack? Do you tend to roll your own solution more often or rely on third party tools? That what's the rational in, I don't know how do you pronounce this. uh, yeah, in a specific case, how does the engineering team balance resources between, how do you measure what are most important product metrics, how often you move teams, what made you join the team you're right now? If you wanted to move teams, what would need to happen? What resources does the company have for new hires to study? um, Sorry, I got distracted. So how often have you moved? So what resources does the company have for new hires to study its products and processes? Are there specification requirements, documentation? How do you think my expertise would be relevant to this team? What unique values can I add? Best questions to ask for knowing more about the role. What qualities do you look out for when hiring for this role? What would be the most important problem you would want me to solve if I joined your team? What does a typical day look like in this role? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the current team? What is being done to improve upon the weakness? What resource does the company have for new hires to study its products and processes? Are there specification requirements, documentation? What would I work on if I joined this team, and would I work most closely with? Who would I work closely with? Best question to ask for knowing more culture and welfare. What is the most frustrating part about working here? What is unique about working at this company? Uh, what you have not experienced elsewhere? What is something you wish were different about your job? How is individual performance measured? What do you like about working here? What is What is your policy on working from home or remotely? What does the company do? Okay, these are pretty good questions. Pretty good questions to be asked. Like I didn't I didn't see this list earlier. Otherwise, I would have asked so many questions from these. These are pretty good questions to be asked. Best questions to ask to know more about company direction. What does the company decide on what to work on next? What assurance do you have that this company will be successful? Which companies are your main competitors and what differentiates your company? What are your highest priorities right now? For example, new features, new products, solidifying existing code, reducing operations overhead. Cool. Best questions to ask to know more about the team leaders or management. How do you train, ramp up engineers who are new to the team? This is a good question. How do you success? How does success look like for your team project? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the current team? What is being done to improve upon the weaknesses? Can you tell me about a time you resolved an interpersonal conflict? Okay, these are really good question. Um, I should probably keep a list of it, a list of list of these question handy to ask few questions. Mm, okay, so what should I do next? What should I do next? Behavioral questions. I wanted to do behavioral questions for Amazon. Let's do some questions for Amazon. How did you deal with a failed deadline? Why do you want to work for Amazon? Tell me about a situation where you had a conflict with a teammate. If your professional experience have in your professional experience, have you worked on something without getting approval from your manager? Tell me a situation where you would have done something differently from what you actually did. What is the most exceedingly bad misstep you've made at any point? Describe what resources mean to you. How would you improve Amazon's website? Okay, good, good questions. Good questions, but I have already made a list of some questions that I've done like 2 years ago, so I'll go through that. But other than that, this is a solid content on questions, common behavioral questions across. Yeah, like this is really a good set of questions. Cool. So what I'll do is I'll probably head back upstairs and start working on this question, talk out loud, and hopefully I can answer some of these questions if they pop up tomorrow. And if not, then I have star method that I can use to answer those questions. So that is it for this one. If this was helpful, please subscribe. This does really feel weird because I never started this channel to get more subscribers, so it's just me. I wanted to, so you guys, because of you guys, I tend to focus on what I'm doing right now and not meander here and there. So being on camera and knowing that someone is watching or this is getting recorded makes me focus on the task at hand and not take my phone up and scroll through it like mindlessly and do other stuff. So this does really help me. I don't want uh, subscribers